Now we're going to talk about greatest common factor, or GCF, and least common multiple, or LCM. Many people get these confused, so it's important for us to understand the difference between the two. A factor of a number is a number that can be multiplied together to equal a larger number. So for example, the factors of 10 would be 10 and 1, because 10 times 1 equals 10, 2 and 5, because 2 times 5 equals 10. So the factors are always going to be equal to or smaller than the number. A multiple is when I multiply a number times a number to get a larger number. So for example, the multiples of 10, the first 5 would be 10 times 1, which is 10, 10 times 2, which is 20, 10 times 3, which is 30, 10 times 4, which is 40, and 10 times 5, which is 50. So the multiples are always going to be equal to or larger than the original number. So if I have two different numbers that I'm comparing, this is when I find the greatest common factor and the least common multiple. So we will take, for example, today, the numbers 30 and 15. So first, if I would like to find the greatest common factor for 30 and 15, remember the factor is going to be smaller. The biggest number it could be would be 15. It's going to be either equal to or smaller than the smallest of the two numbers, the smaller of the two numbers. So the first thing we want to do when we find a greatest common factor or a least common multiple of two numbers is do prime factorization. This is writing each number as a factor of primes. Remember, a prime number is any number that can only be divided by itself and 1. So we're going to do this in two separate ways. For 30, I'm going to use what is called a factor tree. So 30 can be divided two factors of 2 and 15. 2 is a prime number, so I cannot divide that anymore. 15, I'm going to divide 5 and 3. Both of those are prime numbers, so that is now complete. For 15, I'm going to do what we call division by primes. I'm going to make a box around 15. I'm going to start dividing by a prime number. I know 15 ends in a 5, so it can be divided in 5. So I'm going to write a 5 on the side. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 is also a prime number, so my factors for 15 are 5 and 3. Now I'm going to write those factors down here. So for 30, I have 2, 5, and 3. For 15, I have 3 and 5. So the very first step for both the greatest common factor and the least common multiple is to find the prime factorization for each. Now this is where the road branches. If I would like to find the greatest common factor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the numbers that they have, the factors that they have in common. Notice that both 30 and 15 have a 5 in common and a 3 in common. So I'm going to place down here a 3 and a 5, and I'm going to multiply those two numbers together. That gives me 15. So my greatest common factor for 15 and 30 is 15. Notice it is equal to the smaller of the two numbers. That is the largest possible number you can have when you're talking about the greatest common factor. How about the least common multiple? Well, for the least common multiple, instead of finding the ones they have in common, I'm going to find which one has the most of each factor. Notice that 30 has 1, 2, 1, 5, and 1, 3. 15 has 1, 3, and 1, 5. 30 is the only one that has a 2, so it has the most 2's. So over here I'm going to place 1, 2. They both have 1, 5, so neither one has more, so I'm just going to place 1, 5. They both have 1, 3, so neither one has more, so I'm going to place 1, 3. So I do 2 times 5 is 10, times 3 is 30. 30 is my least common multiple. Notice that it is equal to the larger number. That's the smallest it could possibly be. Usually the least common multiple is going to be either equal to or larger than the larger number. So this is how we find a greatest common factor and a least common multiple. Greatest common factor, I do my prime factorization. I choose the numbers that are the same and I multiply them together. It will always be equal to or smaller than the smaller number. Least common multiple, I find which one has the most of each factor, and then I multiply those numbers together. That will give me my least common multiple, which will always be equal to or greater than my larger number. Thank you.